thought I was out. They pulled me back in.
Today I wanted to talk about one scene I've always really liked, because the first time I watched it, I remember not fully understanding what was happening. Tony and Ralph are sitting across from each other, talking about Jackie Jr., but nobody is saying the thing out loud. They keep moving around it. Every sentence sounds like it has another sentence hiding underneath it. Jackie's life is being decided by two men who both want someone else to carry the guilt. I want to go through it line by line and translate what Tony and Ralph are actually saying to each other, because this is one of those Sopranos scenes where the real dialogue is not the words, it's the pressure behind the words. But before we get into that table scene, I want to quickly give the context for how they even got there, why this conversation is happening, why Tony is already looking at Ralph a certain way, why Ralph is already trapped before Tony even starts talking, and what Jackie did that made this conversation possible in the first place. I'll keep it short because the table scene is the whole point of the video, but we need to know where everyone's head is at before they sit down, because once Tony and Ralph start talking, the words only make sense if you understand the mess sitting behind them. The road to that table starts with Jackie asking Ralph for a gun, and the important part is who he asks. He goes to Ralph in Rosalie's house while Ralph is standing in the kitchen like he already has a place there. Jackie says it like he's trying to sound casual.
Need a piece.
Jackie is asking Ralph to treat him like somebody inside the life, and Ralph likes being the guy who gets asked. You can feel it in how little resistance there is. Ralph is standing in Jackie's mother's house with the kind of access Jackie wants for himself. He is connected to Tony, close enough to Rosalie, close enough to the memory of Jackie's father, and when he hands Jackie the gun, it feels less like a warning and more like a quiet little approval from the exact kind of man Jackie is trying to become. The gun comes with a little warmth around it, a little fake closeness from a man who should know better than to make Jackie feel serious. And later, Tony is going to use that closeness against Ralph. Because once Jackie uses the gun, Ralph can't stand outside the story anymore. He was in the kitchen, he was the one Jackie asked, and he was the one who made the first door feel open. The gun leaves Ralph's kitchen with Jackie, and the next time Tony sees him, Jackie is already wearing that little confidence badly. Tony finds him at the club, with another girl in his lap, while Meadow is somewhere else thinking he is still her boyfriend. Up to this point, Jackie still has something protecting him in Tony's mind. His father's name is still doing work for him. Tony can be annoyed by him, disappointed in him, rough with him, but Jackie Sr. is still standing somewhere between them. At the club, that starts to wear off. Tony is looking at a kid who wants the rewards of the life from the safest possible angle. The girls, the attitude, the little gangster performance, all while still hiding behind a dead father's name when things get serious. And now Tony is seeing it through Meadow. So when he drags Jackie into the bathroom, the anger comes out personal. This is the kid he let near his daughter. This is the kid who got welcomed into his house, sat at his table, smiled at his family, and still managed to make Tony feel stupid for trusting him. The beating is ugly because the insult is ugly. Jackie tries to explain himself, but the more he talks, the worse he looks. He sounds small, cornered, caught between the man he is pretending to be and the kid Tony can still grab by the collar. And once Tony finds the gun, the scene gets heavier. Jackie can embarrass himself on his own, but he cannot magically become armed on his own. Someone gave him access. Someone made it easy for him to walk around with a piece like he had earned the right to carry one. Tony doesn't know where it came from yet. But the gun still tells him Jackie is getting too close to something he doesn't understand. He is not just cheating on Meadow anymore. He is walking around armed, acting grown, borrowing little pieces of a life that will crush him the second it stops playing along. By the time Tony tells him,
You bottomed out.
it doesn't land like guidance. It sounds like Jackie has crossed from being a disappointment into being a problem. And in the next scene, Jackie is going to tell Tony exactly who helped him get there. Jackie comes to Tony's house trying to clean up the mess from the night before. He is still talking like the problem is Meadow, or the club, or Tony catching him at the wrong moment. The kid Tony promised to look after, the kid who still gets another chance because of who his father was. But Tony is already past that. The girl in his lap was insulting. The gun is the part that stays on the table. So Jackie reaches for the one name he thinks might help him.
And the piece, Ralph gave it to me.
And the moment he says it, Ralph is pulled into the room. Not physically, he's not there. But now Tony has the missing piece. The gun did not appear out of nowhere. It came from the man living inside Rosalie's house, the man close enough to Jackie to hand him a weapon, close enough to make the kid feel like he had someone on the inside. Jackie says it because he wants to save himself. He thinks Ralph's name explains the gun. Instead, it gives Tony someone else to blame. Because now Tony can look at Jackie and see the stupidity, but he can also look past him and see Ralph standing behind it, close enough to hand him the gun, close enough to make him feel included, close enough to make the first mistake feel easy. And once Tony knows that, the future table scene is already starting to form. By the time Tony sits across from Ralph later, Jackie's mistake will already have Ralph's hands on it. After Jackie gives Tony Ralph's name, Ralph doesn't step back from him, he leans in further. And this time he doesn't hand Jackie a gun. He hands him a story. Jackie asks what Tony was like when he was younger, and Ralph gives him exactly the kind of answer Jackie wants to hear. He starts talking about Tony and Jackie's father robbing a card game, about how that one move put them on the map, how they came out of it with respect instead of punishment. You can see why Jackie listens. His father is dead. Tony keeps treating him like a kid. Ralph is the only man close to the life who keeps making the life sound reachable. And Ralph enjoys that position. He gets to be the storyteller, the man in Rosalie's kitchen who knows the old days, the man close enough to Tony and Jackie Sr. to make their legend feel personal. I don't think Ralph tells the story because he wants Jackie to go out and copy it. He tells it because Jackie's attention feels good. It lets Ralph play mentor without carrying the responsibility that comes with being one. But Jackie is not hearing a warning, he is hearing instructions. Because the story Ralph tells him has the exact shape Jackie is looking for. Young guys, no permission, one crazy move, and suddenly everybody has to take them seriously. Ralph thinks he is telling an old mob story over dinner. Jackie hears a way out of being treated like Jackie Jr. And once that idea lands, the gun from Ralph's kitchen starts to mean something else. This is where the story Ralph told him finally reaches the real world. Jackie walks into the card game with the shape of the old story in his head. The gun in Jackie's hand doesn't make him look like Tony or his father. It makes him look like a kid trying to control a room that can feel he has no control over himself. And the worst part is, I don't think Jackie walks in there planning to murder anybody. That almost makes it more pathetic. He thinks he is doing the first part of a story he already knows the ending to, but the old story had men inside it. The whole fantasy starts collapsing in front of everyone. The respect he came for turns into panic, and once the gun goes off, there is no version of this that can become a funny old story later. Now a man is dead. Furio is hit. Christopher is shooting back. Dino gets left behind. And Jackie runs. That's the real difference between Ralph's story and Jackie's version of it. Tony and Jackie Sr. robbed a card game and came out with a reputation. Jackie Jr. walks into one and leaves everyone else holding the consequences. By the time Tony and Ralph sit down later, this is already sitting under the table. Jackie didn't just embarrass himself. He killed a man at a made guy's card game, shot Furio, put Christopher in the middle of it, and ran away while his friend died in the street. Now, we finally get to the scene I wanted to talk about. And just to be clear, this is how I understand the conversation. If there's a line here where you read it differently, or if there's some mafia rule I'm missing, tell me in the comments, because this scene is slippery on purpose. Nobody says the clean sentence. Nobody wants their name attached to the clean sentence. Ralph and Tony are talking about Jackie Jr., but really, they're fighting over who has to carry him. Ralph starts soft.
He did a terrible thing.
In plain English, Ralph is already admitting Jackie is supposed to die for this. He just doesn't want to be the man who says it first. Tony doesn't let him keep it that general.
Terrible. Your fucking card game.
That little correction is brutal. Tony takes the whole disaster and pushes it across the table. Sunshine is dead, Furio got hit, Christopher was in the room, and now Tony is reminding Ralph that none of this happened in the air. It happened at his game, his table, his people. Ralph feels that immediately, so he tries to move the weight back toward Tony.
I know how close you are to the family.
That sounds respectful, but it's a dodge. Ralph is basically saying, you knew Jackie's father, you care about Rosalie, you have history here, so maybe this should hurt you more than it hurts me. Tony sends it right back.
Feel for you. You're living under the same roof.
Now Ralph has no clean place to stand. He wanted Jackie to be Tony's emotional problem, and Tony reminds him that Ralph is the one sleeping in that house. Ralph is the one next to Rosalie. Ralph is the one who played close when being close felt good. So Ralph says the quiet part a little closer.
I know it was my card game.
There it is. He knows what Tony is doing. He knows the rule is starting to circle him. If the card game was his, the insult was his too. And in that world, insults don't just sit there. They have to be answered by somebody. Ralph brings up Sunshine. He calls it a disgrace. And he's right, but he's also stalling. Every reason he gives for why Jackie's situation is serious is another reason a pass makes no sense. Tony just lets him talk. Tony doesn't have to push hard yet, because Ralph is building the case against his own mercy.
I want to give the kid a pass.
That is the real panic coming out. He isn't saying Jackie deserves a pass, he's saying he wants to give him one. It's personal, it's selfish. It's Ralph trying to get away from the ugliness waiting for him at home if Jackie dies and Rosalie has no idea who helped make it happen. Tony looks at him and says,
Yeah?
That yeah is almost funnier than a threat, because you can hear the whole translation inside it. Ralph hears it too, so he immediately starts fixing the sentence. He says Tony is the boss, Tony has bigger concerns, and whatever Tony orders will be done. Now Ralph is trying to hand Tony the gun without touching it. If Tony gives the order, Ralph gets to obey. He gets to say his hands were tied. He gets to kill Jackie as an employee instead of as the man who failed him. Tony refuses the gift.
Well, I think you should go with your instincts on this, Ralph.
Beautiful, evil sentence. It sounds like freedom, but it leaves Ralph alone with the decision. Tony is not ordering it. Tony is not giving Ralph the clean boss command he's fishing for. He's making Ralph choose while making sure Ralph understands there is only one choice that won't make him look weak. Ralph knows he's trapped, so he reaches for the rules again.
But Furio took a hit. Chris.
These are made men. That's Ralph trying to say, if Jackie lives, the whole family looks bad. Maybe you should step in, Tony. Maybe you should make this official. Tony doesn't step in. He says he'll make sure they respect Ralph's decision because he's sure Ralph will do the right thing. And he adds,
That's why I made you captain.
now the promotion becomes a bill. Ralph wanted the title. He wanted the power, the money, the status, the seat close to Tony. Now Tony is making him pay for it. A captain doesn't get to enjoy the room and disappear when the room gets bloody. Ralph tries the one thing that still sounds human.
This is Rosalie's kid.
That's probably the closest Ralph comes to begging. Because Rosalie is the part he can't gangster talk his way around. He has to go home to her. He has to sit near her. He has to play boyfriend while knowing her son's death passed through his hands. Tony pretends to give him comfort. He says he understands if Ralph wants to give Jackie a pass. He says everyone else will understand too. And that is such a Tony sentence, because it has the shape of kindness and the temperature of a knife. It's the mafia version of your girlfriend saying, it's fine, it is not fine. Tony is basically letting Ralph picture the room after Jackie gets spared. The whispers, the jokes, the guys looking at him like he let a kid shoot at made men because he was scared of his girlfriend. And Tony doesn't need to say any of that with anger. He just leaves the door open and lets Ralph hear what's behind it.
Kid disrespected you.
Now Tony moves away from rules and puts it directly on Ralph's pride. Jackie didn't only break a rule, he embarrassed Ralph. He hit Ralph's card game, killed a man there, ran away from the mess, and now Ralph wants to be generous because the kid's mother is upstairs in his life. Tony keeps saying Ralph can do what he wants, but every sentence makes the pass uglier.
One thing you cannot do, Ralph, is blame yourself.
Tony says it like he's taking guilt off Ralph. His face says the opposite.
You took this kid under your wing. You schooled him as best you could.
That is where all the earlier scenes come back. The gun. The kitchen. The story about Tony and Jackie Sr. robbing the card game. Ralph enjoying Jackie's attention, playing mentor when it felt easy, playing man of the house when it made him feel important. Tony is saying the nice words, but he is looking at Ralph like he knows exactly what happened. You helped make this version of him. Ralph has one weak move left.
Jack spoiled him.
He tries to push the blame onto Jackie's dead father, which is such a Ralph thing to do. The kid is in trouble. The mother is going to be destroyed. Tony is sitting across from him with murder floating between them, and Ralph still reaches for a dead man to hide behind. Tony pulls out the gun.
I think this is yours.
That is the end of the conversation. The gun leaves Ralph's kitchen, shows up in Jackie's jacket, gets taken by Tony, and now it lands back with Ralph. No speech could say it cleaner than that. Tony never tells Ralph to kill Jackie. He gives him the decision, poisons every escape route, reminds him of the title he wanted, the disrespect he swallowed, the woman he lives with, the kid he encouraged, and the gun that started in his hand. By the end, Ralph isn't being ordered, he's being cornered into calling it his own choice. And after all of that, Jackie does the one thing that tells you he still doesn't understand the room he's trapped in. The kid who walked into a card game with a gun now sounds like he wants an adult to come pick him up. And for a second, Tony lets him hear that old version of himself. He doesn't explode. He doesn't threaten him through the phone. He talks to him in that soft uncle voice, the one Jackie is probably calling for in the first place. But Tony gives him nothing he can actually use. Jackie is reaching for rescue. Tony gives him Ralph. That is the whole phone call. Jackie thinks Tony is still the last door left open, and Tony quietly sends him back to the man who already knows what has to happen. He doesn't say, "You're dead." He doesn't say, "I'm done protecting you." He just keeps the table scene alive after Ralph has already left it. Jackie doesn't get some grand final scene. Not that he deserved one anyway, he was stupid as fuck.
Kid was always a dumb fuck though, wasn't he? Didn't he almost drown in 3 inches of water?
He doesn't get to stand in front of Tony or Ralph or anyone who can explain the sentence to his face. He is just outside in the middle of the day, walking through a place that already feels far away from the world he was trying to enter. Vito comes up behind him, probably right after taking his medication as well, and the first direct sentence in this whole chain is the gunshot. Everything before this was careful. Tony chose his words while Ralph avoided his. Jackie misunderstood almost all of them, but the bullet doesn't need translation. Jackie falls, and the whole lie becomes simple. Tony never ordered it. Ralph made the call. Vito pulled the trigger. And somehow, everyone gets to walk away with their part of the sentence cleaned up just enough to live with it. It is how responsibility moves in this world. A murder can pass from one man to another without ever being held in the open. Tony gets the result he wants. Ralph gets the guilt Tony refuses to carry. And Jackie gets the ending he never understood he was walking toward, but the one he for sure deserved. He thought one big move could turn him into his father. Instead, it turned him into a problem other men solved in whispers.